3 drops. That was all Baba Agba had said. 3 drops for 7 nights, and everything that was threatening her would disappear. No divorce, no disgrace, no younger woman, no losing the life she helped build. That was how it began. Not with blood, not with screams, but with a promise whispered in the dark, and a woman desperate enough to believe it. Adaeze Okonkwo was about to learn that some solutions don't fix problems. They erase lives. Hello, my dear friends, and welcome once again to Tales by Larinzy. This is the home of powerful stories, stories that teach, warn, inspire, thrill, and guide us in the journey of life. If you're new here, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world to me and helps these stories reach even more people. It was a carefully calibrated suggestion. Chidi didn't push too hard. That would make Adaeze suspicious. He simply planted the idea and let it germinate. "I'll think about it," Adaeze said. "Of course, no pressure. I just hate seeing you suffer like this. You deserve so much better." Then, for the first time, Chidi kissed her. It was gentle, tender, asking permission rather than demanding. And Adaeze, lonely, hurt, slightly drunk, and under the influence of drugs she didn't know she'd consumed, kissed him back. When they finally pulled apart, she was crying again. "I'm a terrible person," she whispered. "I'm married. I have children. What am I doing?" "You're human," Chidi said softly. "You're a woman who's been neglected and hurt, and you're seeking comfort. There's nothing wrong with that. Your husband broke the marriage covenant first, if he's really cheating. You're just responding to what he started." It was a lie wrapped in emotional manipulation, wrapped in just enough truth to be believable. Chief Emeka wasn't cheating. But Chidi needed Adaeze to believe he was, needed her to feel justified in her own betrayal, needed her to see herself as a victim rather than a perpetrator. Because victims were easy to manipulate. Victims would do anything to protect themselves, to strike back at those who'd hurt them. Chidi was too smart for that. Moving too fast would break the spell. Instead, they lay on the hotel room couch, Adaeze's head on his chest, his arms around her, talking until dawn. When Adaeze finally went home at 6 a.m., she found Chief Emeka asleep in his study, his head on his desk, shipping manifests scattered around him. He'd worked through the night again. She stood in the doorway looking at him. This man she'd married at 20. This man who'd given her children, built an empire, provided everything she could want. Was he cheating on her? Or was Nkiru wrong? Was there an innocent explanation? But even as she asked herself these questions, Adaeze realized she didn't care about the answers anymore. Because whether Chief was cheating or not, the truth remained. She'd kissed another man. She'd crossed a line, and she couldn't uncross it. More importantly, she didn't want to. For the first time in years, she'd felt desired, valued, seen. Chidi made her feel alive. Chief made her feel like furniture. She turned away from her sleeping husband and went to her bedroom. She didn't notice the small leather pouch that had fallen from her purse, a gift from Chidi that he'd slipped in without her knowledge. A pouch prepared by Baba Agba, filled with ingredients meant to bind her heart to Ifeanyi Madu, to cloud her judgment, to make her susceptible to increasingly extreme suggestions. The poison was spreading through her life like ink through water. Soon it would stain everything. Over the next 6 weeks, Adaeze's life fractured into 2 separate realities. In one reality, she was still Mrs. Okonkwo, attending foundation board meetings, managing household staff, video calling her children abroad, maintaining the appearance of a successful Lagos socialite. She smiled at her husband across the dinner table. She accompanied him to business events. She played her role perfectly. In the other reality, she was Chidi's Ada, a woman rediscovering passion, youth, freedom. They met 3 or 4 times a week now, always at different hotels to avoid being seen. They made love, tender, passionate encounters that left Adaeze feeling cherished and alive. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. They planned a future together, speaking in whispered hypotheticals about what life could be like if she were free. The two realities couldn't coexist forever. Something would have to give. Chidi began applying more pressure, but so subtly that Adaeze didn't recognize it as pressure. "Have you thought more about seeing Baba Agba?" he asked one afternoon at the Wheatbaker Hotel as they lay tangled in expensive sheets. "I really think he could help you get clarity about your situation." "I don't know, Chidi. It feels wrong somehow. Like I'm dabbling in things I shouldn't. It's not about dabbling. It's about protection. What if Chief is working with his own spiritual consultants to manipulate you, to control you? What if that's why you felt so confused, so trapped all these years? Baba Agba could tell you if there are spiritual attacks against you." The idea was absurd. Chief Emeka was a straightforward businessman who barely had time for church, let alone traditional religion. But Chidi's suggestion played on fears Adaeze didn't even know she had. In Nigeria, spiritual warfare was real. People did use juju to harm enemies, control spouses, destroy competitors. "Maybe," she said uncertainly. "I'll go with you," Chidi offered. "You won't have to face it alone. We'll go together, and if you're uncomfortable at any point, we'll leave. No pressure. I just want you to have all the information, all the protection you need." 3 days later, they drove to Badagry. The journey took nearly 3 hours through traffic, past the sprawling city, through smaller towns, until they reached a compound hidden behind high walls and palm trees. Baba Agba's shrine was exactly what Adaeze had expected and feared. A cluttered space filled with carved wooden figures, animal skulls, clay pots, herbs hanging from the ceiling, and the pervasive smell of incense and something darker, something organic and unsettling. The Babalawo himself was ancient, his face a map of wrinkles, his eyes milky with cataracts. But his voice was strong, resonant with authority. "You are under attack," he said immediately, before Adaeze had even explained why she'd come. He spoke in Yoruba, which Chidi translated, another layer of manipulation, allowing Chidi to shape what Adaeze heard. "I see darkness around you. Your husband plots against you. He has consulted powerful forces to bind you, to steal what is rightfully yours, to cast you aside for a younger woman." "How do you know about the younger woman?" Adaeze asked, shocked. "The spirits reveal all things. Your husband plans to divorce you, to take another wife. He will leave you with nothing, no money, no property, no dignity. He plots with his lawyers even now." It was all lies, fed to Baba Agba by Chidi, rehearsed and performed. But Adaeze didn't know that. To her, this old man's pronouncements had the weight of spiritual authority. "What can I do?" she asked, fear making her voice thin. "You must protect yourself. You must strike first before he completes his plans. I will give you protection, charms to guard your mind, herbs to strengthen your will, preparations to ensure victory." Baba Agba moved through his shrine, gathering items. He gave Adaeze a black soap to bathe with, a small mirror to keep under her pillow, incense to burn in her bedroom, and a small bottle of dark liquid. "This is the most important," he said, holding up the bottle. 3 drops in your husband's evening drink, every night for 7 days. It will bind him, prevent him from acting against you, give you time to secure your position. What is it? Adaeze asked. Protection. Just protection. It will not harm him, only prevent him from harming you. Another lie. The bottle contained oleander extract, digitalis, and several other toxins that, administered over 7 days, would cause cardiac arrest. The death would appear natural, especially in a man with high blood pressure and a stressful job. I don't know, Adaeze said, staring at the bottle. Some instinct was screaming at her that this was wrong, dangerous, a line that once crossed could never be uncrossed. But Chidi's hand was warm on her shoulder. Baba Agba's milky eyes seemed to see into her soul. And in her mind, clouded by weeks of manipulation and the drugs Chidi had been feeding her, Adaeze saw a vision of Chief Emeka with a younger woman, saw herself cast out of her own home, saw her children taken from her. It's just protection, Chidi murmured in her ear, just to keep you safe until you can figure out what to do. That's all. Adaeze took the bottle. For 3 days the bottle sat in her purse, unopened. Adaeze couldn't bring herself to use it. Every evening, as Chief Emeka sat in his study with his customary glass of cognac, she thought about those 3 drops. And every evening she walked away without doing anything. On the 4th day, Chief Emeka announced he'd be traveling to Port Harcourt for a week to negotiate a major contract with an oil company. I'll be busy the whole time, he said at breakfast, not looking up from his newspaper. Meetings from dawn to dusk. But if this deal goes through, it will double our revenue. Maybe triple it. That's wonderful, Adaeze said mechanically. When I get back, we should talk about the children's holiday plans, Kamsi called. She wants to bring a friend home for Christmas. I said yes, but I wanted to check with you first. It was a rare moment of consideration, of including her in a decision. But Adaeze barely heard it. Her mind was spinning. A week in Port Harcourt. A week where Chief would be constantly surrounded by business associates. A week where Adaeze would be alone in the house with too much time to think. That evening, after Chief left for the airport, Adaeze called Chidi. He's gone for a week. I miss you already. Come to me, Chidi said. Stay the night. Stay the whole week. We'll have time together. Real time, like a real couple. It was a test, and Adaeze failed it completely. She packed a bag, told the house staff she'd be staying with Nkiru, who'd provide an alibi if anyone asked, and drove to Chidi's apartment in Lekki, Phase 1. That night, lying in Chidi's arms after making love, she told him about the bottle from Baba Agba. I can't use it, she said. It feels wrong. What if it hurts him? What if something goes wrong? Ada, it's just protection. Baba Agba wouldn't give you anything that would actually harm Chief. He's just making sure Chief can't act against you while you figure out your next steps. But what are my next steps? Even if I protect myself spiritually, I still have to face the practical reality. If Chief wants a divorce, if he's really planning to leave me, what can I do? His lawyers will destroy me. Chidi was quiet for a long moment. Then he said very carefully, There's another option. I probably shouldn't even mention it. It's terrible, it's unthinkable. But, what? Chief has high blood pressure, doesn't he? And he's under constant stress. Men like him, wealthy, powerful, working 80-hour weeks, they have heart attacks all the time. It's tragic, but it happens. Adaeze's blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying that if something happened to Chief, something natural, something that no one could question, you'd inherit everything. As his widow with children to support, you'd be entitled to the entire estate. No divorce lawyers, no splitting assets, no fighting. Just a widow's inheritance. Are you suggesting I kill my husband? Adaeze's voice was barely a whisper. No. God, no. I'm sorry I even brought it up. Forget I said anything. I just hate seeing you trapped like this, knowing that you're going to lose everything you've worked for. But you're right. It's unthinkable. I was wrong to mention it. But the seed was planted, and in Adaeze's drugged, manipulated mind it began to grow. Because Chidi was right, wasn't he? Men like Chief Emeka did have heart attacks. The stress, the travel, the high blood pressure. It was only a matter of time. And if it happened sooner rather than later, while Adaeze still had some control over her life, wouldn't that be better? Wouldn't it be justice, in a way? She wasn't thinking clearly. Couldn't think clearly. Between the juju charms she wore, the potions she'd been given to protect herself, the powder Chidi had been slipping into her drinks for weeks, and the systematic psychological manipulation, Adaeze Okonkwo barely existed anymore. In her place was someone else, someone desperate, someone afraid, someone willing to do unthinkable things for survival. The bottle, she heard herself say, the one from Baba Agba. What if I used it when Chief gets back? What would happen? Chidi pulled her closer. I don't know, Ada. I'm not a spiritual expert. But Baba Agba said it was protection. Maybe it would just protect you. Maybe it would solve everything. Maybe, Adaeze whispered. Chief Emeka Okonkwo returned from Port Harcourt on a Friday evening, exhausted but triumphant. The oil company contract was signed, a 3-year deal worth 18 billion naira. It was the biggest contract in his company's history, the culmination of 18 months of negotiations. He came home to an empty house. The children were abroad. The staff had weekends off. Only Adaeze was there, greeting him at the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Welcome home, she said, kissing his cheek. How was the trip? Successful, very successful. We should celebrate. Maybe dinner tomorrow at La Taverna? Just the two of us? It was an olive branch. Chief Emeka had noticed his wife's distance over the past months, her distraction, her coldness. He attributed it to stress, possibly menopause, maybe the empty nest syndrome now that the children were abroad. He'd been so focused on business that he'd neglected their marriage, and he knew it. The Port Harcourt deal was supposed to be his last major push. Once it was secured, he planned to step back, delegate more to his management team, spend more time with Adaeze. He'd even spoken to a travel agent about planning a second honeymoon. Maybe Santorini, maybe the Maldives, somewhere romantic where they could reconnect. If only he'd spoken up that night. If only he'd told Adaeze about his plans, about the renewal of vows he was planning for their anniversary, about his realization that he'd been taking her for granted. But he didn't. He was tired from travel, eager to review the contract details one more time before celebrating. So he simply said, I'll be in my study for a bit. Just need to go over some paperwork. I'll bring you your cognac, Adaeze offered. Thank you, my dear. Adaeze walked to the kitchen on autopilot. Her hands moved without conscious thought, retrieving the crystal decanter, pouring the amber liquid, pulling the small bottle from her pocket. 3 drops. That's all Baba Agba had said, 3 drops in his evening drink for 7 days. The liquid fell into the cognac, invisible, odorless. This was murder. She knew that. No matter what Baba Agba had called it, no matter how Chidi had rationalized it, this was premeditated murder. She should stop, should pour the drink down the sink, should confess everything to Chief Emeka. The affair, the manipulation, the terrible thing she'd almost done. But then she thought about the younger woman at Protea Hotel who didn't exist. She thought about Chief's plans to divorce her, which were fiction. She thought about losing everything, a manufactured fear. She thought about Chidi's promises of a new life together, lies upon lies. And she thought about how invisible she felt in her own home, with a husband who'd forgotten their anniversary. That last thought was real. That pain was genuine. And it was that genuine pain, expertly manipulated and amplified by Chidi, that made Adaeze pick up the glass and carry it to her husband's study. "Here you go," she said softly, setting it on his desk. Chief Emeka looked up, smiling warmly. "You're a lifesaver. Join me for a drink? I'm tired. I think I'll turn in early." "Of course. Sleep well, my dear." Adaeze left the study. She walked upstairs to their bedroom, locked the door, and collapsed on the floor, shaking uncontrollably. What had she done? What was she doing? She grabbed her phone to call Chidi, needing his reassurance, his strength. But there was already a text from him waiting. "Thinking of you. Stay strong. This is for your protection. You're doing the right thing. I love you. I love you." He'd never said that before, and those 3 words arriving at exactly the right moment were enough to silence Adaeze's conscience. She texted back, "I love you too." Downstairs, Chief Emeka sipped his cognac, unaware that he'd just consumed the first dose of poison that would kill him. Over the next 6 days, the routine continued. Every evening, Adaeze brought Chief Emeka his cognac with 3 drops of Baba Agba's poison. Every evening she watched him drink it, then retreated to her room where she'd text Chidi for emotional support. Chief Emeka didn't notice anything wrong at first. Maybe a bit more tired than usual, slightly short of breath, occasional chest tightness. But he was nearly 50, working long hours under constant stress. These symptoms seemed normal. On the 3rd day, he mentioned to Adaeze that he hadn't been feeling well. "Maybe you should see Dr. Adaeze," she suggested, referring to their family physician. "It's probably just exhaustion from the Port Harcourt trip. I'll be fine." By the 5th day, Chief Emeka's symptoms were worsening. He was sweating more, experiencing palpitations, feeling dizzy. But he still attributed it to stress and overwork. He had an important board meeting coming up. He couldn't afford to be sick. Adaeze watched her husband deteriorate and felt nothing. The drugs, the juju, the manipulation, they'd completely severed her emotional connection to him. This man who'd loved her, married her, built a life with her, he'd become a stranger, an obstacle to be removed. On the 6th day, Nkiru called. "Ada, how are you? I haven't heard from you in over a week." "I'm fine, just busy." "Have you thought any more about what we discussed? About protecting yourself financially?" Nkiru's role in the scheme had shifted. She'd become genuinely frightened as she watched Adaeze spiral further into Chidi's control. But she was also trapped. If she warned Adaeze now, if she told the truth, she'd be implicated in fraud, possibly conspiracy. And Chidi had made it clear that if she betrayed him, he'd ensure she went to prison. So Nkiru continued playing her part, even as guilt ate at her. "I'm handling it," Adaeze said cryptically. "What does that mean?" "It means you don't need to worry about me anymore. Everything is being taken care of." The tone of Adaeze's voice, flat, emotionless, almost robotic, sent chills through Nkiru. "Ada, what have you done?" I have to go. Chief needs his evening cognac. The line went dead. Nkiru sat in her apartment, staring at her phone. Something was terribly wrong. Adaeze sounded like a different person, cold, disconnected, almost inhuman. She should call someone. The police. Chief Emeka himself. Someone who could intervene before whatever was happening reached its terrible conclusion. But she didn't, because calling someone meant confessing her own role in destroying her best friend's life. It meant admitting to fraud, to conspiracy, to betrayal. So Nkiru did nothing, and that night she added to her sins the greatest one of all. The sin of knowing evil was happening and remaining silent. On the 7th day, Chief Adaeze Okonkwo woke feeling worse than he'd ever felt in his life. His chest felt like someone was sitting on it. His left arm was numb. His vision was blurry. "Ada," he called out, but his voice was weak. "Ada, I don't feel well." Adaeze came into the bedroom, looked at her husband, gray-faced, sweating, clearly in distress, and felt a moment of clarity break. Through the fog in her mind, this was really happening. She'd really poisoned her husband, and now he was dying. "Should I call Dr. Adaeze?" she asked, and even in his pain, Chief Emeka heard something strange in her voice. Flat, curious, almost academic. "Yes," he gasped. "Call him now. Call an ambulance. Something's wrong." Adaeze pulled out her phone. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she made a decision. She didn't call Dr. Adaeze. She didn't call an ambulance. She called Chidi. "It's happening," she said. "He's having symptoms. What should I do?" "Where is he?" "In bed. He can barely move. Should I call for help?" There was a pause. Chidi was making calculations. If Chief Emeka died at home, there might be questions, an autopsy, investigations. But if he died at the hospital, it would be assumed to be a natural cardiac event. "Call an ambulance," Chidi said. "Call right now. You need to look like a concerned wife. Ride with him to the hospital. Be hysterical. Be perfect. If he dies at the hospital, no one will question it. And if he survives, he won't. Baba Agba's preparation is foolproof. The 7th day, that's when it takes effect. He'll have a massive heart attack in the next few hours. Just make sure you're playing your role." Adaeze hung up and dialed 767 for emergency services, and when the operator answered, she let loose a scream that was half performance, half genuine horror at what she'd become. "My husband. Something's wrong with my husband. Please, send an ambulance. I think he's having a heart attack." The ambulance arrived within 20 minutes. Impressive for Lagos. The paramedics loaded Chief Emeka onto a stretcher while Adaeze rode along, holding his hand, crying convincingly. At Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Chief Emeka was rushed into emergency care. Doctors swarmed around him, hooking him up to monitors, starting IV lines, administering medications. Adaeze sat in the waiting room, surrounded by concerned friends and family who'd heard the news and rushed to the hospital. Chief Emeka's younger brother, Obina, held her hand. His secretary, Mrs. Akinola, brought her water. And through it all, Adaeze played her part perfectly. The concerned wife, the devastated woman watching her husband fight for his life. But inside she felt nothing, just a strange, hollow emptiness where emotions should have been. At 8:47 p.m., exactly 7 days after the first dose of poison, Chief Adaeze Okonkwo's heart stopped. The doctors tried to revive him, CPR, defibrillation, emergency medications. But Baba Agba's poison had done its work thoroughly. The cardiac damage was too extensive. At 9:12 p.m., Chief Emeka was pronounced dead. The death certificate listed the cause as cardiac arrest, secondary to hypertensive heart disease, and acute myocardial infarction. Natural causes. Tragic, but not suspicious. No one ordered an autopsy. Chief Emeka had high blood pressure, a stressful job, was approaching 50, and had been complaining of not feeling well for days. His death, while sudden, fit a pattern that doctors saw all the time in high-achieving Lagos businessmen. Adaeze's performance was flawless. She screamed. She collapsed. She had to be sedated. She looked like a woman who just lost the love of her life. Only two people knew the truth. Adaeze herself and Chidi, who received her text at 9:15 p.m. "It's done. He's gone." His reply, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Stay strong. I'll be here when you need me. Don't contact me for a few weeks. It would look suspicious. But know that I'm thinking of you, loving you, waiting for you." Adaeze looked at the message, then at her children who just arrived from the airport. Kamsi sobbing, Obi's face twisted in grief, Adana too shocked to even cry. She looked at her husband's brother, at his business partners, at the life she just destroyed. And she felt nothing. The poison had killed more than Chief Adaeze Okonkwo. It had killed Adaeze's humanity. The funeral was a spectacle befitting a man of Chief Adaeze Okonkwo's stature. The governor of Lagos attended. Business leaders from across West Africa sent representatives. The church service at Daystar Christian Center overflowed with mourners, over 2,000 people paying their respects. Adaeze played the grieving widow perfectly. Dressed in black from head to toe, supported by Nkiru on one side and her eldest daughter Kamsi on the other, she wept convincingly throughout the service. She gave a eulogy that spoke of her husband's vision, his generosity, his love for his family. "Emeka was my everything," she said, her voice breaking in all the right places. "My partner, my friend, the father of my children. This world is darker without his light." The lies flowed like honey, sweet and thick, and no one suspected. How could they? Adaeze Okonkwo had been married for 20 years. She'd been devoted, supportive, faithful, or so everyone thought. Only Nkiru knew different. Only Nkiru saw the way Adaeze's grief sass, slightly performative. Only Nkiru noticed that, despite the tears, Adaeze's eyes were cold. After the burial at the family plot in Ikoyi Cemetery, Nkiru pulled Adaeze aside. "Ada, we need to talk." "Not now, Nkiru. I'm exhausted." "It can't wait. Ada, please. Just 5 minutes." They stepped into an empty room at the reception hall. Nkiru closed the door. "What did you do?" she asked bluntly. "What are you talking about?" "Chief Emeka. His death." "Ada, tell me you didn't—" Nkiru couldn't finish the sentence. Adaeze's eyes went flat, dangerous. "Be very careful what you accuse me of, Nkiru. My husband died of a heart attack. It's tragic, but it happens." "Did Chidi tell you to do it? Did that man convince you to kill your husband?" "You're being hysterical. Chidi has nothing to do with this. In fact, I haven't even spoken to him since Emeka died. It wouldn't be appropriate." "Oh God," Nkiru whispered, sinking into a chair. "Oh God, Ada, what have we done?" "We?" Adaeze's voice was sharp. "You're the one who introduced me to Chidi. You're the one who told me Chief was cheating with a younger woman. You're the one who convinced me my marriage was a lie. So yes, Nkiru, we. You're as guilty as anyone." The words hit Nkiru like a physical blow. Because they were true. She had set this in motion. She had introduced Adaeze to Chidi. She had lied about Chief Emeka's supposed affair. All because of jealousy, because of a need to see her friend brought low. But she'd never imagined it would go this far. She'd thought they'd swindle some money, maybe break up the marriage. Not murder. Never murder. Arda, we need to stop this. Whatever you and Chidi are planning, there's nothing to stop. Chief is dead. I'm a widow. I'll mourn appropriately, settle his estate, and move on with my life. That's what widows do. And then what? Run off with Chidi. Live happily ever after on your dead husband's money. Why not? Adaeze's voice was cold. Chief wasn't faithful to me. He had that woman at Protea Hotel, remember? You told me yourself, so why shouldn't I find happiness with someone who actually values me? There was no woman at Protea Hotel, Nkiru burst out. I made it up. Chidi told me to say it, to make you suspicious of Chief. Ada, your husband was never cheating on you. He was faithful. He loved you. And we, her voice broke, we helped kill an innocent man. The room went very quiet. Adaeze stared at her friend, her face expressionless. When she finally spoke, her voice was eerily calm. You're lying. You're just trying to make me feel guilty. I'm not lying. Chief wasn't having an affair. BC never saw him with any woman. I made it all up because Chidi paid me to. He paid me to introduce you to him, to poison your mind against your husband, to isolate you from everyone who loved you. And I did it because... Nkiru's voice broke. Because I was jealous. Because I was bitter. Because I wanted to see you suffer the way I'd suffered when Chukwudi left me. You're lying, Adaeze repeated, but her voice was less certain now. I'm not, and neither is Chidi who he says he is. His real name is Ifeanyi Madu. He's a con artist. He's done this to other women, made them fall in love with him, convinced them to steal from their families, then disappeared with the money. Ada, he's using you. Everything he's told you is a lie. Adaeze's hands began to shake. The fog in her mind, the fog that had been there for months, began to clear slightly, and in that clarity came a terrible dawning horror. No, she whispered. No, you're lying. Chidi loves me. He told me he loves me. He doesn't love you. He loves your money. Ada, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I never imagined you'd... Nkiru couldn't continue. She was crying now, great racking sobs. Adaeze stood frozen, her mind racing. If Nkiru was telling the truth, if there had been no affair, no younger woman, no plot by Chief Emeka against her, then everything she'd done was based on lies. She'd killed her husband. She'd killed an innocent man. She'd destroyed her children's father based on manipulations and lies. I need to leave, Adaeze said abruptly, heading for the door. Ada, wait. But Adaeze was already gone, pushing through the crowd of mourners, ignoring concerned questions, getting into her car. She drove aimlessly through Lagos, her mind spinning. She ended up at Bar Beach, staring at the ocean as sunset painted the sky, orange and purple. Her phone buzzed. A text from Chidi. I know I said not to contact me, but I've been thinking about you constantly. How are you holding up? I miss you so much. Adaeze stared at the message. Then she called him. Ada, he answered on the first ring. Are you okay? I've been so worried. Is your name really Chidi Nwosu? A brief pause. Of course it is. Why would you ask that? Because Nkiru just told me your real name is Ifeanyi Madu, that you're a con artist who's done this to other women. Another pause, longer this time. When Chidi spoke again, his voice was smooth, reassuring. Ada, think about what you're saying. Nkiru is the one who introduced us, who encouraged your relationship with me, who told you about your husband's affair. Now she's trying to make you doubt me. Don't you see what she's doing? She's jealous. She wants you to be as miserable as she is. She said she lied about Chief's affair, said there was no woman at Protea Hotel. And you believe her. Ada, she showed you pictures. She gave you specific details. Why would she lie about that unless— Chidi paused dramatically. Unless she's trying to make you feel guilty about Chief's death. Think about it. Chief died of natural causes. But Nkiru knows you were unhappy in your marriage, knows you found comfort with me. Maybe she thinks if she can convince you that you were wrong about Chief, you'll be so consumed with guilt that you'll give her money to keep quiet. The logic was twisted, but it had just enough truth to be believable. Nkiru had introduced them. Nkiru had told her about the affair. Nkiru had been there every step of the way. I don't know what to believe anymore, Adaeze said weakly. Believe in us, Chidi said softly. Believe in what we have. Ada, I love you. I've loved you from the moment we met. Yes, the circumstances aren't ideal. Yes, the timing is complicated, but our feelings are real. Don't let Nkiru's jealousy and lies destroy what we've built. Adaeze wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. Because if Chidi was lying, if everything he'd said was manipulation, then she'd murdered her husband for nothing. She destroyed her family, orphaned her children, committed the worst sin imaginable, all based on lies. She couldn't accept that. Wouldn't accept that. You're right, she said finally. Nkiru's just jealous. I shouldn't have doubted you. It's okay, my love. You're under tremendous stress. But we'll get through this together. In a few weeks, once it's appropriate, we can start being seen together publicly. We can build our life. Everything will be okay. After they hung up, Adaeze sat in her car and cried. Not for Chief Emeka, she'd buried whatever feelings she'd had for him. She cried because somewhere, in the deepest part of her soul, she knew Nkiru had been telling the truth. But she couldn't face that truth. So she buried it, just as she'd buried her husband. The reading of Chief Emeka's will took place 2 weeks after the funeral. The family gathered in the conference room of Okonkwo Maritime Services. Adaeze, her 3 children, Chief Emeka's younger brother Obina, and several cousins. The lawyer, Mr. Okafor, read the will in his dry, professional voice. Chief Emeka had been thorough in his estate planning. Almost everything was left to Adaeze. The shipping company, 60% controlling interest, the properties in Ikoyi and Lekki, the vacation home in Dubai, the investment portfolios, the offshore accounts. The children received substantial trust funds that would mature when they turned 25. Obina received 15% of the shipping company. Various cousins and family members received smaller bequests. But the bulk of the estate, estimated at 2.3 billion naira, plus the value of the properties and business, went to Adaeze. Her children looked at her with something approaching awe. Kamsi squeezed her hand. Daddy took such good care of us, she whispered. Even now. Guilt stabbed through Adaeze, but she pushed it down, buried it with all the other feelings she couldn't afford to examine. That evening she met with Chidi at a hotel in Ikeja. It was risky. She was supposed to be in mourning, but she needed to see him, to ground herself in their relationship, to remember why she'd done what she'd done. 2.3 billion, Chidi said, his eyes gleaming. Plus assets. Ada, you're one of the wealthiest women in Lagos. It doesn't feel real, she said. None of this feels real. It is real, and now we can start planning our future. But we need to be smart about this. You're going to inherit a shipping company. You'll need to sell it, liquidate it. Same with the properties. We need to convert everything to liquid assets that we can move easily. Why? Adaeze asked. Why do we need to liquidate everything? Because a shipping company requires management, oversight, constant attention. You're not a businessman, Ada. You don't know how to run a maritime company. Better to sell it now while it's profitable and invest the money elsewhere. Maybe in my fintech startup, I could use a major investor. Or we could buy property in Dubai or London. Start fresh somewhere where no one knows us. What about the children? This is their inheritance. The children have trust funds. They're taken care of. But you need to think about yourself, about your future, about our future. Over the next 3 months, Chidi applied steady pressure, and Adaeze, still under the influence of the juju charms she wore, still consuming the drinks he prepared for her, which contained traces of Baba Agba's love preparation, began making decisions that would horrify her if she'd been thinking clearly. First, she sold the shipping company. Obina begged her not to. "Sister, this is our family business," he pleaded. "This is what Emeka spent his life building. We can hire professional managers. We can keep it in the family." "I don't want the stress of managing a business," Adaeze said coldly. "I've made my decision." She sold Okonkwo Maritime Services to a competitor for 800 million naira, significantly less than it was worth, but she wanted a quick sale. Obina was devastated. The employees were devastated, but Adaeze didn't care. Next, she began selling the properties. The Ikoyi mansion went first, 450 million naira. The Lekki apartments, 280 million naira. The commercial building in Victoria Island, 320 million naira. Her children watched in horror from England. "Mummy, what are you doing?" Kamsi asked during a video call. "Why are you selling everything? That's our home. Those are our properties." "I'm simplifying my life," Adaeze said. "I don't need all these properties. They're just maintenance headaches." "But where will we live when we come home?" "I've kept a small apartment in Yaba. We can stay there." "A small apartment?" Obi's voice was incredulous. "Mommy, we grew up in an 8-bedroom mansion. We have staff, we have—" "Mommy, this doesn't make sense. What's happening to you?" "Nothing's happening to me. I'm just making practical decisions about my future." "Does this have something to do with that man?" Kamsi asked quietly. "The one Aunt Nkiru told us about?" Adaeze's blood ran cold. "What man? What did Nkiru tell you?" "She called us last week. She said you've been seeing someone. A younger man. She's worried about you, Mummy. We're all worried about you." "Nkiru is a jealous, bitter woman who needs to mind her own business," Adaeze snapped. "And so do you. I'm your mother. I don't owe you explanations for my decisions." "Actually, you do," Obi said, his voice hard, so much like his father's. "Because you're selling our inheritance. You're liquidating everything our father built. We're not children anymore, Mummy. Kamsi is 19, I'm 17. We can see what's happening." "You can't see anything from England," Adaeze said, and ended the call. The next properties went quickly. The vacation home in Dubai, the London apartments, even the beach house in Ilash. The luxury cars were sold, the yacht at Apapa Marina, the shares in various companies, everything. Nkiru tried to intervene. She called, she visited, she begged. "Ada, please. You're making a terrible mistake. This Chidi or Ifinyi or whoever he is, he's destroying you. Can't you see that?" "Get out of my house," Adaeze said coldly. "You're not welcome here anymore. I'm trying to save you." "Save yourself. You're the one who set all this in motion. You're the one who introduced me to Chidi, who lied about my husband. Now you want to play the concerned friend? It's too late, Nkiru. Way too late. Nkiru left in tears. That was the last time the two friends would speak for years. By April, exactly 1 year after that first meeting at the wheat baker, Adaeze had liquidated nearly everything. She'd kept one small apartment in Yaba, worth maybe 45 million naira, and had approximately 1.8 billion naira in liquid assets. Chief Emeka's empire had been dismantled in 4 months. 20 years of building, destroyed in a fraction of that time. And through it all, Chidi was there, supportive, loving, encouraging, making sure Adaeze stayed the course, making sure the fog in her mind never lifted long enough for her to see what she was doing. "It's almost time," he said one evening at the Peninsula Hotel in Lekki. "Once you consolidate all the funds, we'll transfer everything to our offshore investment account in Dubai. Then we can leave Nigeria, start fresh, maybe get married, build something beautiful together." "Married?" Adaze's heart leapt. "You want to marry me?" "Of course I do. I've wanted that from the beginning. You're the love of my life, Ada. Once we're free, once we're in Dubai where no one knows us, we can finally be together properly." Adaeze threw her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. After everything she'd sacrificed, everything she'd done, it was all worth it. She'd found true love. She'd found someone who valued her, who wanted to build a life with her. She didn't see the predatory gleam in Chidi's eyes as he held her. Didn't see him glance at his phone, at the text from his associate in Mauritius, confirming that the offshore account was ready to receive funds. The day of reckoning came on a Thursday in late April. Adaeze sat in the VIP banking suite at her bank in Victoria Island, her laptop open, ready to make the final transfer. 1.8 billion naira. Everything she had left in the world. Chidi stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. "Remember, we need to transfer it all at once. That's how international investment accounts work. Once it's there, we'll have full access from anywhere in the world." Adaeze's fingers hovered over the keyboard. For the first time in months, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. "Chidi, I've been thinking. Maybe we should transfer it in stages. Maybe start with 500 million, see how the account works, then transfer the rest." His hand tightened on her shoulder. "We've been over this, Ada. Partial transfers raise red flags with international banks. They might freeze the account, thinking it's money laundering. We need to do it all at once. Clean, simple, legitimate." "But what if something goes wrong?" "Nothing will go wrong. I've used this bank before for my business investments. They're completely reliable. Ada, you need to trust me. Haven't I been there for you through everything? Haven't I proven my love?" The words found their mark. Adaeze nodded, her doubts subsiding. She began typing the account number Chidi had given her. But as she entered the digits, something made her pause. She opened a new browser tab and quickly Googled the account number. The results made her blood run cold. The account was registered to a shell corporation in Mauritius, Phoenix Rising Investments Limited, and that company had been flagged in multiple fraud investigations across West Africa. The company was linked to scams in Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria, linked to missing funds, devastated families, ruined lives. "Chidi," she said slowly, "this account, what exactly is it?" "It's our investment account, I told you. It's registered to Phoenix Rising Investments, a company that's been flagged for fraud in 3 countries. Chidi's friendly demeanor evaporated. His hand became a vice on her shoulder. "Transfer the money, Adaeze. Now." "Who are you really?" she whispered. I'm someone who's been very patient with you, someone who spent an entire year of his life courting you, seducing you, convincing you, someone who helped you kill your husband and liquidate your family's assets. And now, Ada, you're going to give me what I've earned." The fog that had clouded Adaeze's mind for a year suddenly lifted. She saw everything clearly for the first time, the manipulation, the lies, the systematic destruction of her life. She saw what Nkiru had tried to tell her. She saw what her children had been warning her about. She saw that she'd murdered her husband, abandoned her children, and destroyed a 20-year legacy, all for a man who'd never loved her, a man who'd been playing her from the very beginning. "No," she said, her voice shaking. "I won't do it." "Yes, you will, because if you don't, I'll go to the police. I have recordings of you talking about killing your husband. I have the empty bottle from Baba Agba with your fingerprints all over it. I have text messages, emails, everything. If you don't transfer that money, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison." It was true. She was trapped. If she refused, she'd go to prison for murder. If she complied, she'd lose everything and her husband would still be dead. "Please," she whispered, "please don't do this. I'll give you half, even 3/4. Just leave me something for my children." "Your children?" Chidi laughed cruelly. "Those children you've ignored for a year? Those children whose inheritance you've systematically destroyed? Ada, they hate you. And they should. You're a terrible mother and a murderer. Now transfer the money before I lose my patience." Tears streamed down Adaeze's face as she began typing the account number again. This was it. The final betrayal. The final destruction. But fate, or perhaps the spirit of Chief Emeka, watching over his family from beyond, intervened. The bank manager, Mr. Adelek, had been watching the security monitors. He'd seen Adaeze come in with a man he didn't recognize, saw the man standing too close, his hand heavy on her shoulder, saw the distress on Adaeze's face, the tears, the body language that screamed coercion. Mr. Adelek had been a bank manager for 20 years. He'd seen this before, vulnerable clients being pressured into bad decisions. And Adaeze Okonkwo was a valued client, the widow of a respected businessman. Something wasn't right. He pressed the silent alarm. Within 2 minutes, bank security surrounded the VIP suite. In the confusion, Chidi tried to flee. He shoved Adaeze hard and she stumbled backward, hitting her head on the corner of the desk. Blood pooled beneath her as she lost consciousness. Chidi was caught before he reached the exit. Security held him while Mr. Adelek called the police. "We are all responsible for our choices, all of us. Even when those choices are made under terrible circumstances, even when we're manipulated and abused, even when dark forces cloud our judgment, we still choose, and we still pay the price for those choices." Thank you for watching this tale to the end. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe to Tales by Larinzy, the home of stories that teach, warn, and awaken. More deep stories are coming. Turn on notifications so you never miss out on our thrilling tales. Till our next tale, stay blessed.